we've been counting down our most intriguing Mariners, starting from 10, and on Thursday we will reveal number 1 on this list. Number 4 is Bryce Miller, Brock. When we started talking this offseason about the possibility of trading a pitcher, for me, Bryce Miller was the only one that was the hardest no. He was the last on my list of pitchers I would trade it. It's not that he's my favorite of the group. It's not that he, I think, is the number 1 pitcher, anything like that. But the combination of upside, controllability, and health made him, to me, the most valuable guy. Plus, when you start looking at what you could get back for each of them, I would not trade Bryce Miller. And I think when you talk to him, you do get that sense that he is very much on a mission for this upcoming season. Feels as confident as anybody, feels like, he's in a position to take another huge step forward.
I trust all my stuff and have, 7 pitches now that I can trust. And it's just, at the end of the day, it comes down to execution and not letting a single pitch, slide by.
Yeah, a guy that seems to be, I think the word I would use is focused. I think that's what I got from him when we sat down with him at spring training. I got a real sense of focus from him. And where do you hear that? Well, I think specifically in talking to him about last year. I know this quote jumped out to you. It jumped out to me. If anybody was listening to the interview, I think it would jump out to them. Kind of looking back at his previous season, which I'll give you the numbers in a few minutes. They're unbelievable. But that's not the way he was necessarily looking in the rearview mirror.
You look back at the 24 season, like I circled 2 games in the first half that came back to bite me, or that I didn't like the outcome, and those were Kansas City and Miami. And I circled those games just because I didn't feel like those were really my 2 blow-up starts of the first half, but I didn't feel like I got beat by the other team. It was more mentally. Like those 2 games, I kind of, we got out in Kansas City to a huge lead in the first inning, and then I kind of let off the gas a little bit and let them claw back, and then Miami just kind of came out slow and didn't prepare mentally how I would other games. And going into the back half of the season, I think kind of learned from that and used my new pitches a little differently, and I felt like I was a lot more mentally prepared going into each start. And
yeah, I think you can't help but hear that and come away thinking, okay, this is the dude that wants to be, I don't want to say perfect, but elite. He knows he's got the stuff for it. He knows he's got 7 pitches that he trusts. He knows that there's not like a huge amount of pressure on him in this rotation. He doesn't have to carry it all at a young age. He's the 4th pitcher in all likelihood, but he's got good enough stuff to be number 1. And I mentioned the numbers from last year. He started 31 games. Tremendous. He had a sub-3 ERA and a sub-1 whip. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. 31 starts, sub-3 ERA, sub-1 whip. Those are Cy Young kind of numbers.
Yep.
And then the only thing, if you're looking to any number from him and say, okay, what can he get better at? It's probably just getting a little bit deeper into games. He threw 180 innings. It works out to about 5 2/3 per start. About 5, like kind of pitching into the 6th in most starts. But getting through the 6th inning, I think would be a good next step for him for this year. Get that number up. Get that number over 6. He's a Cy Young candidate. If he does everything else he did last year and gets the, that innings per start number over 6, Cy Young. Like, he's got that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think 3 things jump out to me. Number 1, these guys make 30 to 32 starts. And they can have that kind of focus for 30 to 32. This is a 162-game marathon for these pitchers. I think George and Logan and him, they all approach it the same way. Like, these are my 30 to 32 starts, and I've got to be on point for every single one of them and not let any one of them get away from me. That's number 1. Number 2, you know what he strikes me as, Salk? He strikes me as the kind of guy that you would hate if you were on the other side of it. Like, I can't stand that guy. He just mows us down and shuts us down, and we can't touch him. Like, that guy if he was in a different uniform and facing you, you'd be like, no, I want that guy on my side. And then lastly, he's kind of the Robbie Tobeck of this crew. Ask anybody around there. He's the life of the party. He's the one that stirs the pot. He's the instigator, right? Logan is by far, and now he's the ace, and he's going to get the ball Thursday night, and he's lots of those things, gigantic in presence and everything else. But Bryce is the pot stirrer. He's the fun. He's the personality that you kind of got to have over a 162-game season, and has, I think, that impact and that effect on everybody around him. Yeah, I'm like you, man. I love him. Luis, you could have traded and maybe got more, like obviously a lot of flexibility contract.
Yep.
Kirby's an interesting one.
Yeah, he's the one I would have probably tried to trade.
Yep. Woo, obviously the injury history, probably don't get as much back. But yeah, Logan don't really want to move either because he's such a unicorn. But Bryce is right there with Logan. I want him in a Mariner uniform for the rest of his livelihood.
I think the two things that jumped out to me the biggest about Bryce Miller last year were, number one, how he totally flipped the script on neutralizing lefties from his rookie year.
Sure.
Yep.
Because lefties just tore him apart his rookie year. Last year, not at all. Totally flipped the script.
Yep.
And then also his ability in the second half to pitch well on the road also flipped. Tough first half on the road, had a tough rookie year on the road. Last year in the second half on the road, ERA was 2.06.
Yeah, he does seem like somebody who, when there's a problem, figures out a solution for it. And in his case, he does seem to have just an incredible ability to throw different pitches and pick them up fairly quickly. And Brock, when he wasn't awkwardly touching his hands, was getting a pretty good lesson on all of those different pitches and grips and all of it. Hey, you got a problem against lefties? All right, well, maybe I'll try throwing this. Oh, it worked. Cool. I don't have a problem against lefties anymore. So I think his ability to adjust.
Pitch manipulation.
Yeah.
Off the charts.
Yeah. And
great hands.
How were his hands? Were they soft when you were holding them?
They were.
Were you stroking it, or were you just sort of holding the hand?
Whoa, easy.
I wasn't sure.
I will say him and Logan really work their nails too, right? And because and I remember talking to even Logan about that, like the pressure point on the lace, and the finest little details to these guys matter an awful ton.
Number 3 most intriguing Mariner is Bryan Woo. Now, why is Bryan Woo 3 and Bryce Miller 4? I don't know that I know. I don't know that anybody knows. I mean, the similarities between the two guys is significant. What I would say is, if I have to choose between the two in the most intriguing list, it's just upside. I just think that there's more risk and reward with Bryan Woo and more stability with Bryce Miller. And so what makes him more intriguing? By a hair, right? By a nose, I'll go with Woo because of just the risk.
Lower floor,
potential.
higher ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, he could blow out his arm. That might be the end of the conversation.
Yep.
Right? And he might not learn how to pitch as he gets older. Right, he's a thrower, and maybe he learned, like, when the fastball speed velocity goes away, has he figured out all the? We'll find out. I'm not saying he can't do it, but Bryce Miller, I think, has kind of positioned himself to one day become a pitcher rather than a thrower because of the 7 pitches he's throwing. The upside of Bryan Woo, though, especially right now, is unreal. Last year, I'll go back to the numbers: a 2.89 ERA with a .898 WHIP. What are we even talking about? Those numbers are just absurd. They really are. He started on a huge pitch count, right? Coming off the injury. He still got up to 5.5 innings per start, which is tremendous. It's almost where Bryce Miller was, and he didn't have the injury thing to come off of. The upside is, I think, as high as anyone because of that fastball, because it's so legitimate, because it's so unique. Rob Friedman, pitching ninja, on yesterday with Bump and Stacy.
Great stuff. Effortless fastball that has great ride to it. He models himself after, he views himself a little bit like a Zach Wheeler in that his fastball can live up in the zone. Not a lot of effort from Wheeler either. So you're seeing a little bit of, that doesn't quite have the size of Wheeler. But yeah, like he is so much fun to watch. And again, he keeps adding pitches too. And he's really good. Like, all these guys are really good, and they learn from each other, and they all are friends. So it's really cool to watch.
Can't disagree with any of that, man. How easy is it for him to run that fastball up there? Well, his catcher has the best view of it, and this is what he said.
Yeah, I mean, it comes out so smooth, and it's so efficient and like easy cheese. You know what I mean? Like, you see some guys out there and they're grunting and they're throwing hard, but it's max effort, and like you see him and you're like, is he even going like 60%? And he's throwing 95 and he's just blowing it by people, and it's just. That's what that deception is killer.
Easy cheese.
The trade-off of that slot is I don't think he can develop as many pitches as a Bryce Miller or Logan Gilbert.
I tend to agree
Well,
with
he
you.
has 5.
Yeah, as I said, I don't think he can develop as many as Logan or Bryce. I think, yes, he can get to 5. But I think he even talked about that with us, Lyle, right?
I think it's also hard for him, not just that he can get to 5, but really master them.
Yep.
I mean, when you think of Bryan Woo, I generally think of him throwing 2 pitches. I know he throws more than that. But what I see, and again, maybe the numbers wouldn't bear this out, I see fastball slider, right?
Well, he's
Maybe
got 2 fastballs.
2 fastballs. Okay, but that's essentially just pitch grip, right? So once that's just changing the grip on how you're throwing it. Okay, 3 pitches. That's about right. Can he throw a changeup? Yeah. I mean, like, he's got some pitches he can throw, but I see him as being, again, his success comes from the difficulty in picking up that fastball and a slider. That's different from what makes some of the other guys successful. That doesn't make it bad. It's just different.
Yeah,
And
the success is that slot,
right.
that arm slot, and the easy cheese in the velo. You wonder, is that sustainable? That elbow's been a challenge the last couple years and even through college. So that's part of it. And then also in that slot, you just can't manipulate the number of pitches that I think a Bryce and a Logan do from their arm slot.
Well, I do want to point out that not to say this is anything different than what you guys are talking about, but just to continue to highlight Woo here. Like, the fact he walked less guys than Kirby last year and a walk
amazing?
rate,
Insane.
is crazy.
It's insane.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal stat to bring up. He really had an incredible year last year. When he first came up last year, coming off the injury, and he just dominated like 12 straight. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. Can I give his sweeper a little bit of love here? Because you guys were
Please
talking
do.
about his slider. You know what opponents slugged against it last year? Because his rookie year, his sweeper was his worst pitch. You want to take a guess?
Slugging against the sweeper last year, 270.
You gotta guess.
286.
Would you say, Brock, 286?
Yeah.
100. 100.
That's not average. That's slugging.
Slugged.
That's
Well, they also
pretty
hit 100, but they slugged 100. And he threw it 9% of the time. It's not like he never threw it. Like, he threw it.
I'll stand by what I've said. I hope he can be, and this is why he's intriguing.
That's pretty good.
I hope he can stay healthy. I hope he can sustain and do all of that. I will stand by what I do believe. He could be the nastiest closer in baseball.
Well, I kind of like him as a starter personally.
I do.
Yeah, I mean, the
and there's
value is so much higher.
way more value. But I know it's unbelievably taxing to be up all night. So maybe it is in the long term healthy and easier for him to get in a routine as a starter.
The stuff.
But that stuff is just
That stuff would play pretty good out of the bullpen if it needed to. But you don't need it to, because you know what? He had a 2.89 under 0.9 whip last year. I don't see any reason to make any changes to Bryan Woo at all. Number 2 is Randy Arozarena. He is the second most intriguing Mariner. And I will admit, heading into this one, this is somewhat of a personal one for me. I'm personally fascinated by Randy, fascinated by his personality, which we don't get to see a lot of. I know he's mercurial. I know there are, moments where he's kind of keeps to himself and is very quiet. You get to see some of the other side of that on the field, where he plays with a tremendous amount of charisma and showmanship. The reason he is number 2 is because, other than Julio, I don't think that there's anyone else who can add more to the team with the amount of variance in what he could be from top to bottom. Cal is right there, as a great player, but when hot, Randy's a total offensive package, right? Power, patience, can produce runs, can run himself, doubles, triples, driving people. Like the way he is in the box, like there are a lot of things Randy does that I think really, really can help a team. He's also coming off of the worst year of his career, especially when he was in Tampa. So the variance in who Randy is at this point, I think, is actually quite high. But he's going to be hitting, in all likelihood, behind Julio and in front of Cal. So the amount that they're counting on him to be really a catalyst inside this lineup, I think, is enormous. They spend resources to go get him. They believe he changed what their roster is. If Jerry were here today and we were asking him about the quiet off season, I don't know what he would say, but I'm willing to bet, based on prior conversations we've all had with Jerry, he would say something like, well, we feel like Randy Arozarena's addition at the trade deadline last year wasn't just for the last 2 months, but was for this year and beyond, that they include him in their off-season changes because he helped change who this team can be this year. So whether you agree with that or not is a whole different conversation. But I think that's how they view it. And for all of those reasons, yes, he is the second most intriguing Mariner for me.
you should get a much better version of Randy Arozarena than you got for the last couple months of the season. You should get a much better version because he is now here. He is now settled. I think upon looking back at that whole discussion and talking to Shannon down there at spring training, talking to some of the folks around the organization, that was hard. That was hard for him to go 3,000 miles across the country. This was not familiar territory. This was not in the division. This was not, I've been to Seattle a lot. This was, I'm Randy Land. I'm in Tampa. This is my home. And to be uprooted from that and all that he knew there to come all the way out to Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, not just uprooted.
That was a long haul.
I mean, for a guy who is, born in Cuba, went to Mexico, went then to Florida for most of his career. I know there was a stop in St. Louis, et cetera, but for the most part had been in all in that one part of the world.
Yep.
He didn't just go from there to Atlanta. He went from there to Seattle. Like you couldn't get farther away.
Be pretty much like going to England or going to Spain from Florida. Like it's a long ways away in a whole different world in so many ways. Number two, I think you can get the better version, Salt, because he's coming up to, if he wants his payday. We talk about Mitch Haniger and just some of the unfortunate circumstances a little bit for Mitch with injuries and when his clock started and the back and the forth. And man, for being an former All-Star, Mitch was, and I mean, thankfully for him, he got a 3-year deal and made some money at the end of it. Randy, for as much as you feel like he's been around baseball forever, right? Because of playoff games, an all-star game, and home run derby, this is his 5th year? I mean, he's still in arbitration.
Well, in terms of that, I mean, it's his 7th year in the big leagues.
In terms of arbitration.
But the first 2 years were he didn't play a lot. So,
That's right. So in terms of getting his money and getting that generational.
Yeah, this will be his age 30 season, and then he'll also play his age 31 season. Then he'll be a free agent.
Amazing.
Right around the time baseball decides to lock out its players for a full year.
That's right. So, I mean, I think that there's a sense of urgency and knowing how important production is at this age and stage of the game for him. And then, as you said, you're right there with Cal and Julio, right? I mean, you should get pitches to hit. You should have opportunities, right? If people are going to pitch around Julio and going to be a little timid of Cal and that clutch gene and the big moments he's had, you kind of sandwich in between them. And I think that's a pretty opportune place to be. So I think in all of those areas, I just love to see a little more consistency from him as well.
I think that's totally fair. He's never going to be the most consistent player. He's going to be a streaky guy. There's going to be some ups and downs with Randy. He's going to do some over-aggressive stuff.
Going to strike out a fair amount.
But he's a 2020 guy each of the last, 4 years? Mm-hmm. He drives in between 70 and 90 runs, it feels like, every single year. Last year was a little bit of a down year on that. He's going to steal, 20 to 30 bases.
If you're a 2020 guy, why are you such a bad defender? That's a little perplexing to me. That if you can run, and you talk about his ability to run, his ability to steal bases, his ability to get doubles, shouldn't that same burst, shouldn't that same explosiveness play a role?
I don't think there's any problem with his speed in the outfield. I think he just, unfortunately, some of that is
details,
it's just instinct. Okay. Right? I mean, what made Franklin Gutierrez a great center fielder wasn't his speed or any of that. He naturally saw the ball really well, knew where to go, took good routes to it, and Randy, for whatever reason, does not. But
what would be the most important statistic? Okay, not trying to predict or project anything. What would be, in your estimation, the most important metric to measure Randy Arozarena's success for the 2025 Seattle Mariners?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I could go in a few different directions.
To ask good questions.
I could go in a few different directions. I'll tell you one that I'd really like to see. I'd like to see his RBI numbers. I know it's old school. I'd like to see Randy driving some runs.
Yep.
Honestly, and he should have, Robles and Julio hitting in front of him. Doesn't mean he's got to be the run producer. Obviously, Cal and whoever's hitting fifth, probably Rayleigh for the most part. They're gonna share in that, and Julio should drive in some runs as well. I'd like to see him. His max for his career is 89. He drove in 89 runs in 2022 in Tampa.
Okay.
I'd like to see that. No, I'd like to see him kind of come close to that.
80,
I'd like to see 85 RBI from Randy. Mm-hmm. Last year was a down year. The previous years were 69, 89, 83, and then last year combined it was 60. But he had 23 runs driven in just 54 games here last year. So, like, if you keep doing that, right, you should be in that 75 to 85 range. And I think that would be a nice thing. Maybe that's not what they're counting on him for, but I'd sure like to see
like that answer.
The number one most intriguing Mariner is Julio Rodriguez. And if you have any other thought that it could be anyone else, you're nuts. Julio Rodriguez is the most intriguing Mariner in every conceivable way. He's the most talented. He's the most engaging. He's the most important. He's the most interesting in terms of A, what he's capable of, and B, what he's going to do from game to game. He's the one who the most conversations are going to be about. In every way, Julio Rodriguez is the most intriguing Mariner. And as we said earlier, Brock, entering his age 24 season, this is go time for Julio. He's had 3 years now to he had his rookie year where he got to, find out what was going on in baseball, go through those early moments where the umps weren't giving him credit for anything. He battled back. He had a good season. The next year, and they make the playoff. I mean, like, everything that comes with Julio was just tremendous, right? In 2022. 2023, he deals with the All-Star game here and the pressure of sort of, living up to what he had done. The league starts to figure you out. You've got to make adjustments. He struggles with some of that. And still, he puts up some pretty good numbers by the end of the season. Last year, I thought anyway, that was the year. Like, okay, everything's behind him. Now he's ready, age 23. He's going to come out and he's going to really light the world on fire, deliver on the promise. We're going to really see the Julio that we'd always hoped. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen last year. Whether it was changes to the swing, approach, overexcitement, putting too much pressure on himself. I don't know what the reason was, but it just never fully came together for Julio until really late in the season. But guess what? Last 6-8 weeks of the year, Julio was as good as anybody in baseball because he's got that kind of talent. So fast forward again. Now you're to age 24. This is when a lot of players are just coming to the big leagues. And now we're looking at Julio Rodriguez saying, this is sort of prove it year, man. Like, it's time for you to show that you are the guy that everyone has always predicted you would be. Greg Amsinger on the station late last week says, Julio's figuring this out still.
Julio Rodriguez has to go back to being a superstar. And that's a tall order, man. Still a young player. He's still trying to get comfortable with having tons of money. That is a real thing players have to adjust to because everyone's calling you now. A lot of people called you when you broke into the big leagues, not people you've never met are somehow getting your phone number when you're wealthy like he is. So he's dealing with all the human aspects of being a superstar, but he's got to play like one again.
And it's funny that Greg brings that up, Brock. I think I mentioned that I had some of that conversation with Julio off the air when we were down at spring training. Just bumped into him in the cafeteria early in the morning and was asking about coming in early and what he likes to do. And he's talking about, going home in the afternoons at spring training to play Call of Duty with his buddies in the Dominican. And I was like, man, is it hard to make friends in Seattle? He's like, yeah, of course it is. He's only here 6 months. He plays baseball every day. And guess what? Everybody he meets wants something from him. So I don't think it's an accident, Brock, and you brought it up quickly as soon as you saw him this year, that Julio had a little bit more edge to him. And we heard it when people were asking questions about the offseason and what kind of a group they put together.
I mean, like I say, I like the group. I feel like we have what it takes to win, and we're in a really good direction. As a team, as a whole organization, like I say, we're focusing on the right things, and with the group that we have, I think we can compete against anybody. And like I was saying, like the last 6 weeks of the year, when like things really started to go, like we were like up there with the best teams in the league. We're doing everything, pitching well, hitting well, and doing all these things. They're just finding that, that consistency, that identity as a team. And I feel like we're onto something. We're onto something. And I'm excited to see how things go this year.
Look, I'm looking at a couple guys here. All right. I'm looking at some guys, and I understand he's 24 and he's young and he's all of this. But, man, if you want to put your team on your shoulders and be a star in this league, Bobby Witt Jr., Acuna, Vlad Jr., those last two in particular, looking at what those guys did at 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, like, it's go time.
Yeah.
Like, it's go time.
Yes.
Like, can you be Vlad Jr.? Can you have an OPS plus of 167, 162? Like, pick up your team, put them on your broad shoulders, and go be a star. You've done it for a month and a half in ways that even those guys had not done. But it's, it is kind of, I'm not going to say it's no excuses time. He's still 24. Baseball is a fascinating game and journey of ups and downs and failures and all of it. But you're now kind of at an age where you're looking to your peers, and those two in particular, Acuna coming off obviously a knee. Go look at their numbers. Go look at Vlad Jr.'s numbers. Don't use age as an excuse, because those guys at 22, 23, 24, at your age, just as you were at 22 with the best season statistically of your career, you can do this. It's in there. But it's got to be much more consistent over this 6-month journey.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, look at Juan Soto, right? At age 21, he had an 1185 OPS.
It's just ridiculous.
I mean, some of these numbers are just staggering, right? 22, it's 999. It did come down a little bit, I guess. At 23, it was down to 853, and then at his age 24 season, back up to 930. That was his year in San Diego, not exactly a great hitter's park. So, yeah, I would say you're right. It's not about excuses. It's just, it's go time. And Julio Rodriguez is the most talented guy on this team. It's go time. He is the most intriguing Mariner because of what he's capable of and because he's yet to fully realize all of the potential that's in there. If this is the year that he does that, the Mariners offense is going to be just fine, and they will be in the playoffs, because a hot Julio equals a perfectly good Mariners offense, which is going to equal a very good Mariner team.